Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Sight for White, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Saturday the 17th of December 2022. Well, the time has finally come. We closed Millbrook House yesterday for our 2-week break over the Christmas period. We will reopen again on Tuesday the 3rd of January after the bank holiday on the 2nd. It has been an amazing year. We really have achieved so much as we have watched the charity to continue to grow from strength to strength. Our 2020 survey seems a long time ago now, but in this survey we phoned every member and we asked them a number of questions, but the most important one was, what can we do to help you? 2023 will bring the next survey to all members and we will come back to each and every one of you and ask, how are we doing? What else can we do? And how can we help you as an individual? So thank you to everybody who joined in the 2020 survey and look forward to speaking to you again next year. I also want to just thank every single staff member, volunteer and trustee for their undying, relentless work and support for the charity. This has been a huge period of change since we took over the White Sense contract in April, but I am delighted to say that we are hitting every target, every KPI, and most importantly, we are helping individual people living with sensory loss. So thank you to every volunteer, staff member and trustee. And of course, thank you to the members. If you didn't interact and if you didn't come to us and tell us how we can help, then we wouldn't need to be here. So thank you to each and every person who's contacted the charity during the year. It really was a pleasure producing the 31st of March 22 accounts, although it was a little bit strange looking back on what was COVID last year. Producing the accounts this year compared to last year was so much more fun. I was able to include so much information and pictures and photographs of members enjoying themselves with smiles on their faces. I look forward to producing the 23 accounts next year, as we of course already 9 months into that year, and we really do have a huge array of things that we are celebrating this year too. So finally, wishing everybody an extremely happy Christmas and looking forward to 2023. We won't be producing the Talking News for the next 2 weeks because everybody is having a break over the Christmas period. So stay safe, enjoy Christmas and stay warm and be very careful on these icy roads and paths. Thank you, Lisa, CEO, Sight for White.
This is Michael reading an article from the Ireland Echo. Commitment to attend all burglary reports in Hampshire starts to come good. After committing to attend all burglary reports in the region earlier this year, the decision to do so is starting to pay dividends. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary have announced in September 2022 Acting Chief Constable Ben Snuggs made a commitment that Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary would attend to every single dwelling burglary report that they received. In the last 2 months, the force has already seen the number of charges they have achieved for residential burglary double compared to recent monthly averages, as the force makes the very most of the forensic opportunities available through physical attendance. In October and November, they secured 22 charges relating to residential burglaries, with many more investigations underway. Since the 1st of April 2022, they have already seen 112 burglary investigations result in formal action, such as charges being taken. Burglary reports across Hampshire and on the Isle of Wight have increased in recent months, which is in line with annual trends as the clocks change and evenings grow darker earlier. However, the number of burglary reports is still significantly fewer than the levels recorded before the COVID-19 pandemic. Between the 1st of September 2018 and the 31st of August 2019, a total of 4,127 reports were received. That compares to 3,010 reports received between the 1st of September 2021 and the 31st of August 2022. Since the 1st of April 2022, have received just over 2,100 reports of dwelling burglary. Acting Chief Constable Ben Snuggs said, "In recent weeks, we have seen around 75 dwelling burglaries reported to us each week across Hampshire and on the Isle of Wight. Every single one of these burglaries can cause significant distress to victims, which is why I made a commitment earlier this year to attend every residential burglary report we received. Over the course of this year, we have delivered a range of initiatives across Hampshire and on the Isle of Wight to increase the number of offenders who are identified and brought to justice. This is being coordinated by a central burglary improvement group, ensuring all the right specialists are involved to turn things around. Every deployment is an opportunity to capture evidence, identify lines of inquiry, and capture offenders, and increase the number of cases in which formal action is taken."
This is Katrina reading from Island Echo. Hearst nominated for national competition to find UK's favourite local business. Home, DIY and garden retailer Hearst is celebrating after being nominated in a national competition to find the UK's favourite local business. The firm, which is based right across the island in Newport, Cowes, Freshwater, Ryde, Shanklin and Ventnor, has been praised for its friendly and helpful staff, choice and home delivery. Shanklin resident Anna Hardy nominated Hearst in the competition and said, "Hearsts are always open on time and their range is excellent. I live in Shanklin, and if they haven't got what I need in the Shanklin store, they will call Newport and see if they have it. They make it easy to shop local. They'll also deliver for free, which was especially useful during lockdown. The staff are always lovely. For me, Hearsts wins every time on both price and quality. They're a special local business in the Isle of Wight, and I would love to see them win the competition." Jevon Kennedy, the managing director of Hearsts, has said, "Hearst was established in 1859 with roots in agriculture and ironmongery. Over time, we have evolved into the 6 branches we have in the Isle of Wight today. Our objective at Hearst is to serve our local community, employing local people and supporting the island through initiatives like the annual Isle of Wight Day, fundraising and supporting local charities. Our branches are hubs of the community, and most of our team know our customers by name and are always happy to make some time for a chat. With a product like ours, having colleagues on hand to give good old-fashioned advice about the best product to use for that DIY project is, I think, really appreciated by customers. We're also the only retailer to still sell single units, so if you've just a need for a single bolt, you can buy a single bolt. Customers call Hearst an Aladdin's Cave because of the huge range of stock we carry. It is a real proud moment for Hearst knowing that locals have taken the time to nominate us in the Help Us Find the UK's favourite local business competition, and is testament to our hard-working team." Councillor Julie Joan Evans, Cabinet Member for Levelling Up, Generation, Business Development and Tourism, says, "It's fantastic to see nominations for such a much-loved Isle of Wight business, which does so much to support our community. Our local businesses are the lifeblood of our community, employing local people, keeping our high streets vibrant, and serving our residents and visitors day in and day out. Please continue to vote for your favourite Isle of Wight businesses so we can celebrate our local businesses. You could even win a £500 Wight gift card. The Wight gift card is part of the Town and City gift card initiative active across the UK and Ireland. Town and City gift cards is sponsoring the Help Us Find the UK's favourite local business competition. Any local businesses can be nominated, with the business receiving the most votes being crowned as the UK's favourite. The UK's favourite business and one person who nominated them will receive £500 of gift cards. Colin Munro, Managing Director of Micronext, has said, Hearst is an excellent example of a local business that goes above and beyond to support its community, evidenced by the number of nominations we've had for Hearst since the competition opened. The winning business will be announced in December, and we hope to see many more nominations coming in for local businesses in the Isle of Wight. Isle of Wight residents can vote for Hearst or any other Isle of Wight business at www.lovelocalwin.co.uk. Voting closes on the 21st of December.
RSPCA's plea to help keep animals warm as cost of living crisis hits God's Hill branch. From the Isle of Wight Radio, read by Lee. The Isle of Wight's RSPCA branch has launched a Christmas charity appeal to help it meet the cost of keeping animals warm this winter. In common with other businesses, homes and charities, the branch is also experiencing spiralling fuel costs. The charity, which receives no regular funding from the national RSPCA, estimates their energy bill for its animal rescue centre at God's Hill could this year top £40,000, with further rises on the way. That is more than double the cost of heating and lighting the centre and its charity shops the previous year. A contribution to support these rising costs will help the centre care for animals in need. Alternatively, the branch is accepting donations of blankets or bedding, which can be used to keep animals in its care snug this winter. The face of this year's appeal is rescue dog Oakley, a 5-year-old male Samoyed, who, due to his poor condition on arrival, had to have 2.2 kilograms of fur and debris clipped away. Although Samoyeds are known for their thick and beautiful double-layer coat, which acts naturally as a dirt repellent as well as providing insulation, in Oakley's case he needs extra support to keep him warm this winter due to bare skin exposure as a result of the required veterinary care. Regular bathing and grooming needed to treat his coat. Branch manager Suzanne Pugh said, "We know how much people are struggling with the cost of living crisis, yet we know also how wonderful community has repeatedly come forward to support their island animal shelter. Our duty of care is to keep animals such as Oakley warm and comfortable, and as everyone will appreciate, the cost of doing this has risen sharply. We rely entirely on generous donations and fundraising activities of the community to keep going, and cost of providing our many and varied animal welfare services has simply never been higher. I thank everyone for their kindness at this time of year, and on behalf of the animals, our volunteers and our staff, I can assure you we appreciate your generosity."
This is Patrina reading from Isle of Wight Radio. Regeneration plans unveiled for neglected East Cowes Army Barracks. Regeneration plans have been unveiled for the neglected Victoria Barracks on East Cowes Esplanade as part of the £5.8 million levelling up of the area. In recent years, the building has been vacant, and according to agents on behalf of the Isle of Wight Council, ERMC is neglected, in a poor state of repair and unsuitable for occupation. The Isle of Wight Council has now submitted plans to its planning department seeking permission to restore and extend the Victoria Barracks opposite Venture Quays. The works would give the building a new lease of life, ready for potential new tenants, UKSA, to use as another base across the river from its Arctic Rose Cows headquarters. Under the plans, the barracks would house a common room, meeting room, sleeping accommodation, bathrooms, wash-up area, laundry, storeroom, a canteen and kitchen. A new single-storey extension would be tacked on to one end of the building to facilitate the proposed new use, but tucked away so it would only be able to be seen by people on site. ERMC say the proposals allow the authority to improve a building of local island importance, improve learning and training facilities, and increase business on the island while keeping up with the demand for maritime learning. The barracks were built in 1872 to accommodate guards for Queen Victoria. It remained owned by the military until 1960, when it was sold to the British Hovercraft Corporation, but is now owned by the Isle of Wight Council, which was successful in securing funding for the East Cowes Waterside development. Internally, the building has been altered through the years, so few original features remain. New ceilings and floors would be fitted, and the walls would be stabilised with internal steel bracing. The walls and railings around the barracks would be kept and restored, as the Victorian railings are some of the last in the town. The majority of the others were used for ammunition during the Second World War. You can view the plans 22/02/168/FUL on the Council's planning register. Comments can be made until January the 11th. The barracks were last used 2 years ago as a set on the BritBox show The Beast Must Die.
This is Michael reading from Island Echo. Solent Freeport announced as one of the UK's first approved by government. The Solent Freeport was announced as one of the first UK freeports to be fully approved by government on Wednesday. The Solent's ambitious bid for freeport status was one of 8 in England shortlisted by the government in the spring 2021 budget. As an important part of the UK's economic recovery, freeports are areas that benefit from incentives to encourage economic activity. Wednesday's announcement follows the formal government designation of the tax sites within the Solent Freeport, where investment is underway. Tax sites offer occupiers business rates relief and other incentives to support capital investment, skills and employment. Business rate growth generated at the tax sites can be retained locally and reinvested in the area. Brian Johnson, chair of the Solent Freeport, said, "This is the news we've been looking forward to, and I'm grateful to our partners across the public and private sectors for their commitment and vision in bringing about a freeport for the Solent, which will benefit our communities for generations to come." The Solent Freeport really is a once-in-a-generation opportunity, an investment in our future which will ensure local people benefit from job creation and increased prosperity, regenerating our communities. Levelling Up Minister Dehenna Davidson said, "Today is a historic day for many port towns and coastal communities as the Solent Freeport takes flight. This freeport is going to give local economies a shot in the arm and unlock a new state-of-the-art business space and create tens of thousands of highly skilled jobs." Designation of the Solent Freeport announced today will help accelerate and enhance investment already underway at key locations, including a package of investments at the ABP Port of Southampton to enhance operational efficiency and capacity, including new warehouse and distribution units, additional container storage areas, new HGV driver welfare facilities, improved marine access, as well as enhanced rail provision to support businesses right across the UK. new 500,000 square feet of business space at Navigator Quarter, adjacent to the runway at Southampton Airport, and part of a 75-acre site as part of the Solent Freeport. The project is being delivered by AGS Airports Limited in partnership with Blockwork, a Network Rail JV company, and expected to be completed in 2024. Construction is underway to deliver 3 new Grade A specification buildings at Dunsbury Park, a 100-acre business park within the Solent Freeport, already home to the global headquarters of several international companies. The new building units range from 19,000 square feet to 33,000 square feet of industrial and manufacturing space, and will be ready for occupation by summer 2023. The Solent Freeport is a widely supported proposal which will transform Solent productivity, create more than 15,000 jobs in the Solent and a further 15,000 throughout the UK.
Hello, this is an article from the Island Echo, read by Sue. Needles to Coast Guard team look set to relocate to Yarmouth Fire Station. Needles Coast Guard rescue team looks set to relocate from Totland to Yarmouth in 2023, thanks to a new partnership with the fire service. Island Echo can reveal. Behind the scenes, plans have been drawn up for the West Wight-based Coast Guard team to relocate from Land's End in Totland to Yarmouth Fire Station, 3 miles away in the neighbouring town of Yarmouth. The move has come about as more suitable base is needed, reflecting the growth of the team, bigger vehicles and more technological equipment over the years. It will mean that volunteers can be recruited from slightly further afield, and response times for the Coast Guard rescue vehicle to locate such as Cowes will be reduced. It also means that it's only a short hop, skip and jump for meet and greet tasks at Yarmouth Harbour. It was back in February that Island Echo first inquired with the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency about the potential move, but is only now, 10 months later, that it has finally been confirmed that the location is on the table. Official documents released by Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Services confirm that they have spent money on the facilities at the station to improve standards, ahead of HM Coast Guard occupying part of the building. This includes an upgraded kitchenette and carpeted lecture room. It's hoped by Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Services that the cohabiting of the station, which houses just one appliance, will increase income generation from the island estate. There are a few more legal hoops to jump through ahead of Needles CRT completing their move. A final survey of the drainage system is to be completed this month, and should the results be positive, solicitors will be instructed to finalise the lease and agree a date for occupation. It's not thought that this will happen before the end of the year, however. A Maritime and Coast Guard Agency spokesperson has told Island Echo, "The heads of terms have been agreed in principle between HM Coast Guard and Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Services to cohabit the Yarmouth Fire Station. A final survey of the drainage system is to be completed this month, and pending the results, we will be in a position to instruct solicitors to liaise with the landlord's solicitors to finalise the lease and agree a date for occupation. It's unknown what will happen to the government-owned Coast Guard station at Totland. Flank stations at Ventnor and Bembridge are unaffected."
Isle of Wight Council increases electric vehicle charging accessibility. From the Isle of Wight Radio, read by Lee. The Isle of Wight Council is expanding its network of electric vehicle or EV charging points in conjunction with Joju and Mer Charging to support those without access to off-street parking, with Quay Street in Newport as one of the newest on-street chargers which are active. The active chargers are proving popular with island residents, with 441 charging sessions to date, more than 7,200 kilowatt hours of electricity drawn, and 598 kilograms of CO2 saved, all the charge points are powered by green electricity. Councillor Phil Jordan, Cabinet Member for Infrastructure, Highways and Transport, said, "I am delighted and encouraged that the first 7 on-street vehicle charge points are now available for residents to use, and we look forward to increasing this number over the next few weeks. We have been receiving a growing number of requests from both residents and visitors for public charging facilities, and through our partnerships we are planning and working towards meeting the demand as fast as we are able. On-street charger locations have been chosen to meet local resident demand and will help the EV transition for residents who cannot benefit from home charging. One parking bay at each site is reserved exclusively for electric vehicles that need to recharge. MER are fully funding the installation of 7 new rapid chargers and 16 dual fast chargers in public car parks across the island. This will increase the number of car parks with the operational EV charge points to 13. It is anticipated the first of these new off-street installations will be completed by the end of December 2022. Transitioning to electric vehicles is key to the achievement of the Council's climate targets. Included in these goals are increasing the number of public charge point sockets to at least 72 in council car parks and on private land such as supermarkets and public petrol stations. An Isle of Wight council spokesman said, "We acknowledge that not all charge points are in working order at the moment, but we are working closely with contractors to get them running as soon as possible."
This is Patrina reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Town Hall to Gown Ball. One night only event raises money for men's mental health. A one night only event in which the Mayor of Ryde took to the stage in drag has raised more than £700 for men's mental health. On Monday, December the 5th, the Moncton Arts Lounge was transformed into a music hall for an evening of the good old days to raise funds for Ryde's third sector group, Men Only, IOW. The packed house was entertained with fabulous renditions of Down at the Old Bull and Bush and a whole lineup of incredible acts, including a special guest appearance by soprano Jackie Moore. Mr. Jim Thorne was delivering musical accompaniment. The evening was hosted by John Thorne, whose elaborate introductions of the performers was reminiscent of the late great Leonard Sash. The last act was Ryde Mayor Councillor Michael Lilly's transformation into the legendary female impersonator Danny LaRue. Michael pledged to perform the late Mr. LaRue's hit On Mother Kelly's Doorstep and I Am What I Am, if £500 was raised before he went on stage. Needless to say, the target was exceeded, with a grand total of £703.42 raised. Councillor Lilly said, "I have supported Men Only from the beginning, as men are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than women, and 4 times less likely to talk about it. Male suicides are the highest number of suicides in the UK and on the Isle of Wight. I have not put on a dress before, well, at least not in public, and only doing this to raise awareness as Isle of Wight Council champion for mental health and as Mayor of Ryde. Please support me and donate. I thank Men Only for the work they do." The money is being used in part to fund and support Men Only's drop-in facility based in the Ryde Depository, and will be used to ensure they can keep the building warm, especially for their Christmas Day drop-in. Men Only is a peer-led initiative to support men and raise awareness of men's mental health issues. They are based in Ryde. Men Only have a mission to support men, whether they need some advice or just the space to talk. They aim to create a peer group to help men prevent mental health problems proactively rather than reactively. Men Only would like to give thanks to Dawn and Gina at Moncton Arts for working exceptionally hard to organise and host the evening. All the acts that gave terrific performances enthralled the whole house and, of course, Councillor Michael Lilly, pictured below with Dawn Fiddler and Jenna Seaburn from Moncton Arts, ride, presenting the cheques for £703.42 to Carl Hart from Men Only, Isle of Wight.
This is Michael reading an article from Island Echo. Support is available to help you live well in the community this winter. Community organisations, the Isle of Wight Council and the NHS are working together to support people on the island to stay well, independent and connected with their local community this winter. The Living Well and Early Help Partnership has already helped more than 800 people by linking them with local support. A new mobile hub has also been launched and is helping the team to travel to some of the more remote areas of the island. The partnership is delivered by Aspire Ride, working in partnership with organisations such as Pan Together, West Wight Sports and Community Centre and Ventnor Town Council. Funding is provided by the Isle of Wight Council and the NHS. The partnership is already making a difference in people's lives. One 91-year-old resident was referred to the team asking for support with social isolation. Her husband was in the hospital and her family lived on the mainland. During a home visit, the team identified other needs and arranged for her to join the minibus trip to meet people and join a monthly social group. The team also assisted with some benefits support. She was referred to a local charity to become a befriender, and transport was arranged to visit her husband in the hospital. Shirley Bradshaw, operations manager for the Living Well and Early Help team, said, "The key to success is collaborative working, where we share information and work together to support our local community. Another crucial aspect of our offer is to help people stay safe and well at home by linking them with their wider community. Help can include anything from social contact and building people's support circles to referrals into community groups nearby or linking them with the job centre, carers, Isle of Wight, housing support, health and social care assistance or cost of living help, to name a few." Dr. Michelle Legg, Chair of the Isle of Wight Health and Care Partnership Board, Island GP, and Clinical Director for Isle of Wight and Hampshire and Isle of Wight Integrated Care Board, said, "By investing time into each individual or family, the team can gain an understanding of what support they need to be able to build on their own strengths and capabilities, so that they can stay strong and independent. Providing this early help close to home is even more crucial in the winter months, and linking people up with community resources reduces the pressure on health and care services. To find out more about the Living Well and Early Help Partnership, call 01983 240 732 or visit iweh.org.uk. The Council's Cost of Living Help web page can be found at www.iowgov.uk/COSTOFLIVING.
Hello, this is an article from the Island Echo read by Sue. Plans to build solar power farm in the West Wight put forward to the council. Planning permission has been submitted to the Isle of Wight Council to create a large solar power farm known as Barn Field off Wilmingham Lane near Thorley. As previously reported by Island Echo, plans were first touted back in August, when British-owned investment and asset management company Low Carbon announced that they would like to build a 39-hectare solar farm that will create enough clean energy to power almost 10,000 homes each year. At that time, it was announced that if were plans to be approved, the site would be located on land east of Wilmingham Lane and south of the village of Thorley near Wellow. Once developed, the on-site energy farm will help assist in delivering low-cost, safe and affordable electricity. It's said that Barnfield will provide a unique and innovative space for sheep to graze amongst the solar panels, which provide protection in both summer and winter. There will also be additional planting of native species. The farm would include the following equipment: rows of solar PV panels, 11 inverters and transformers, around 4.7 kilometres of cable connection linking the site to the substation in Shelfleet, internal access tracks, a perimeter fence and gate, and CCTV cameras. In the plan, it is hoped that construction would take 18 weeks. The site is composed of predominantly greenfield land, as well as being situated within a zone that poses the least risk of flooding and is not within 600 metres of the nearest Grade 2 listed building, meaning objections on these grounds are to be unlikely. After the lifespan of the panels and all other associated equipment has ended, the site will be decommissioned and returned back to its former use. This would be around 40 years after its construction. Plans for solar power sites have been put forward to the Planning Committee at the location in the past, albeit for smaller in-scale operations. Those viewing the application should do so quoting 22/01793/ F U L. Comments should be made by the 25th of January 2023.
Zoe's Law. Isle of Wight skin cancer campaign goes to Parliament. From the Isle of Wight Radio, read by Lee. A grieving Isle of Wight family's campaign to have moles which are removed tested for cancer has been highlighted in Parliament. Zoe's Law aims to change NHS medical practices to ensure that all moles removed at private clinics are tested for melanoma. It was started following the death of Islander Zoe Panayi to skin cancer in May 2020, as Isle of Wight Radio previously reported. Zoe's mother, Eileen Punter, recently updated MP Bob Seeley on progress with the campaign. Now, following that conversation, he has initiated a parliamentary debate to raise awareness in government. During the debate, Mr Seeley suggested to Health Minister Helen Whately that the government could initiate a pilot scheme to test all moles and skin tags removed from the body for melanoma. He said the idea of testing all removed moles and skin tags is potentially very popular, and a petition started by Zoe's family has now reached some 35,000 signatures. The island's MP said he would like to know what more could be done in future because thousands of people are needlessly dying every year. He urged the minister to respond to him in writing, setting out further plans on raising awareness of moles and suggested more could be done through education and training. He said, I ask the minister to respond not only on the issue of testing for melanomas, but on broader education for GPs, hairdressers, dentists and nurses, so that they are better able to spot cancerous moles before they spread. Mr Seeley also paid tribute to Zoe's family, particularly her mum Eileen Punter, highlighting the great work they had been doing to lead the campaign. In concluding the debate, the minister also paid tribute to Zoe's family. She said, like Zoe's family, as cancer minister, I want to stop people going through what they have been through. I want us to get better at preventing, diagnosis and treating cancer. Although we cannot remove the risk of skin cancer in its entirety, we can raise awareness of the things that increase the risk and help people take steps to protect themselves. She highlighted that Teledermatology, the use of digital images to check for signs of skin cancer, is now offered by all GPs on the Isle of Wight and is increasingly available across the NHS, as Isle of Wight Radio revealed earlier this year. Responding to Mr. Seeley's specific request, she said, "I can assure him that I will take his argument away, look into it, and then write to him with a full response on his proposal. We should in no way limit our sights as to what can be achieved in the here and now. The crucial here and now is early diagnosis, which much improves the prospects for successful treatment. Zoe's family wants those who do not have cancer to get an early diagnosis so that they have the chance to survive and live their lives as, sadly, Zoe did not." That is something that I want to, and I want fewer people to get cancer. Those who do have cancer to be diagnosed earlier and in turn to be treated successfully so they can live their lives to the full.
Hello, this is an article from the Island Echo, read by Sue. What can be done better? Annual Recycling and Waste Survey opens. The annual Residents Recycling and Waste Survey has been launched and will run until the 23rd of January. The Isle of Wight Council is asking for your views and ideas on how the island can recycle more and reduce its waste. The Isle of Wight Council is responsible for the collection, treatment, recycling and disposal of household recyclables and waste on the island. Councillor Karen Lucchini, Cabinet Lead for Waste, said, "We've made great progress as a community in recycling, but sadly some rubbish produced by households locally still ends up in a landfill. We want to reduce that as much as we can and continue with our waste partners to provide the best service possible. Please take a few minutes to complete this survey and we will carefully consider every response we receive. This information will help to inform the decisions that we make about how the island's waste and recycling services can be even better." Natasha Dix, Strategic Manager for Environment, said, "Thank you in advance for taking the time to help us shape the future waste and recycling services for our island. Residents have already shown that they are up for the challenge of reducing their waste, and I would like to thank everyone for their efforts so far. Once the survey has finished, we'll use the results to look at possible improvements to the existing services, so it's more important than ever that you make sure you have your say in good time." The consultation launched on Tuesday and will run until midnight on the 23rd of January 2023. You can fill the survey in online. www.iow.gov.uk/consultations. Paper versions will be available by request and will be available at all council-run libraries. If filling in a paper copy of this survey, please return by 5 o'clock on Monday the 23rd of January 2023 to Waste Management, County Hall, High Street, Newport, PO 301UD. Unfortunately, no responses received after the closing date can be considered by the council.
Today's Talking News is read by me, Morris.
And me, Lynn.
And I have a headline that reads, "Don't they know it's Christmas? Anger as Whitelink's flagship ferry taken out of service for holidays." A ferry firm has been accused of ruining Christmas while Whitelink has apologised and says it needs to carry out vital maintenance on its flagship vessel. There has been anger on Facebook because some passengers' bookings have been swapped to widely different times of day due to a smaller ferry being brought in to replace Victoria of Wight. Whitelink said its larger boat is undergoing engine work, which means it is currently not in service. Instead, the smaller St Faith is making the trip between Portsmouth and Fishbourne, which means some passengers have had their bookings moved. In a Facebook group dedicated to cross-Solent travel, one passenger said changes on December the 23rd, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m, had lost 8 hours of family time. The passenger asked, who schedules maintenance at Christmas? Are we being taken for mugs or what? Another said a 3 p.m. sailing was swapped to 1 a.m, while a third said their loved ones had changed plans to travel via Lymington Yarmouth instead. Responding to the county press story on the news online, Anne Axford said, "You couldn't make it up. This at the busiest winter travel time for the year. I hate to say this, but don't they know it's Christmas?" A spokesperson for Whitelink said, "Our winter maintenance programme involves bringing vessels in and out of service depending on the work required and facilities needed ashore. As some ships are significantly larger than others, this means occasionally we will need to move bookings if we make any changes to our maintenance plan. In this instance, we have decided it was essential to take Victoria of White out of service for engine maintenance, replacing her with which is a much smaller ferry. We have tried to minimise the impact on customers and apologise for the inconvenience. Whitelink has offered passengers the chance to change dates, though some sailings are now sold out. If your alternative booking is not convenient, you are advised to contact Whitelink online or via 0333 999 7333. Customers can also rebook to another date without charge or request a full refund. Work was carried out on Victoria of White in February and March, and more is due."
The editor is to leave the County Press post after 38 years, but his successors keep it local. It will be the end of an era at the County Press when long-serving editor Alan Marriott leaves at the end of March. But two top island journalists are set to take the reins of Britain's best-selling weekly paper. Alan has been at the paper since 1984 and will have completed nearly 39 years with the title by the time he departs. He is being replaced by two co-editors, the title's current head of content, Laurie Little, and audience and content editor, Lucy Morgan. Alan, 60, is partly retiring, but will retain a small ambassadorial role with the County Press. After training with the now-defunct Cheshire Observer series straight from school in Chester, he moved to the Isle of Wight in 1984 to become the County Press's sports editor. He held a number of positions before he was appointed editor in 2007. Following a brief spell as the paper's publisher, he returned to the editor's chair in 2020. He said, "I have had a great career in local newspaper journalism and have loved every minute. The move to digital has been a fascinating experience over the past 2 decades. I have worked with some top journalists, not least Laurie and Lucy, who will be great successors and will serve the Isle of Wight's people well. It has been an honour to serve the Isle of Wight over so many years and to have met so many wonderful, inspirational people and cover some incredible stories. I am looking forward to seeing my successors further accelerate our digital progression, while at the same time producing superb County Press newspapers. It will be nice to take a step back from the world of work and enjoy my sporting hobbies to the full while I can still run about, albeit slowly. Alan plays cricket for Island Bakeries and veterans football with Real Vectis Veterans. He is also a trustee of the Isle of Wight Sports Foundation. Laurie, who went to Sandham Middle and Sandown High Schools, joined the County Press in 2001 as a trainee reporter and went on to work in the news and features departments before becoming head of content in 2019. Lucy, who joined the County Press in March 2020, has been working in journalism for around 25 years, including at Isle of Wight Radio and Solent TV, as well as at mainland TV and radio stations, including a stint BBC Radio Solent. She grew up in Sussex and studied at Cardiff University and Goldsmiths University. Lucy said, "Laurie and I are delighted to be given the chance to take on such an integral piece of Isle of Wight history. The County Press continues to be a crucial player in keeping islanders informed, and we will strive to do this historic title proud. It has such a strong, loyal readership with a huge following in print and online, with the latest JIC REG data showing the County Press reaches 86% of all adults on the island every month. Alan has been such an important name in island journalism for decades, and moving forward, we're thrilled he's chosen to continue to represent the brand in the community as ambassador. Laurie said despite being around since 1884, the county press has taken huge strides in recent years to modernise and embrace changes in how islanders consume news. Our digitally focused newsroom has the biggest team of professionally trained local journalists of any Isle of Wight media outlet. Lucy and I are sad to see Alan leave the newsroom, but will follow in his footsteps as champions of island businesses, charities, community groups, etc. Send us in your news.
The Isle of Wight's dental crisis is getting worse day by day, was the warning from a health watchdog. Health officials at the Isle of Wight Council's Health and Social Care Scrutiny Committee have been urged to act now and not wait months to find a solution. It follows the change from national oversight provided by NHS England to a more localised approach by the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Integrated Care Board, the ICB. Jo York, the ICB's interim dentistry lead, said she understood the island's issues, but there were issues across the country the NHS England team were having to deal with. The transition was going well, Ms York said, and they have been able to build relationships with dental practices as well as using local resources to answer the island's needs. However, she recognised the island had significant challenges which had been exacerbated by the COVID pandemic, including access to dentists and retention and recruitment of workforce. A previous attempt to recruit a new, bigger island dental practice was unsuccessful earlier this year, so now, Ms York said, the ICB was looking to do something different. A solution, however, may take at least 6 to 9 months should it need to be procured, but if the ICB could do something more innovative and work with local dentists, it could be quicker. Joanna Smith, manager of watchdog organisation Health Watch Isle of Wight, said the ICB needed to act urgently as the situation was getting worse for islanders day by day. She said some islanders cannot wait 6 to 9 months when they have been waiting for years. There is a huge backlog of need. Some people have never been able to access a dentist. Councillor John Nicholson, chair of the committee, said the NHS commissioners had managed to make it an appalling mess. It was resolved the committee would ask MP Bob Seeley to speak to the Health Secretary, Steve Barclay requesting he look into the roles of those responsible in the NHS for the planning, provision and delivering of dental services due to the complete collapse of the existing structure for patients and dentists under their tenure.
Dedication of St Mary's Maternity Unit recognised. The Isle of Wight's maternity service has been handed the results of a recent planned inspection by the Care Quality Commission, the CQC, and it's good. Areas for improvement were identified around monitoring, analysing and evaluating triage times and the recording and administering of medicines. However, the Isle of Wight NHS Trust says it has brought in an electronic triage system and made updates to its prescription chart. The CQC's report follows 2 days of visits in October 2022, part of the CQC's National Maternity Services Inspection Programme. Inspectors found services to be safe and well led, and staff were supported to achieve and fulfil their roles in an environment that was conducive to learning and supporting staff development. Amanda Pearson, Director of Midwifery, said, "We are delighted. It is really pleasing to see our commitment to safety, learning and improvement come through in the report." Consultant Nick Kenny said, "I am proud to work with such a dedicated, committed, hard-working team. I am pleased the CQC report reflects the highly professional and compassionate care that we as clinicians see every day." Inspectors found staff received key skills training and collaborated for patients and understood how to protect patients from abuse. There were enough staff to care for women and keep them safe, and infection risks, medicines and safety incidents were managed well. Women who chose to give birth outside of guidelines were supported to make sure that the birth was as safe as possible. Midwives said that the teams worked together well to support informed choice and engaged well with women and communities to plan and manage services, and people could access it when they needed. Staff and leaders were found to be committed to continually improving services. Lindsay Stanton, Local Maternity Voice Partnership Chair, said, "I am so pleased. It's been an unprecedented few years, but the team have adapted and managed the challenges well. I would like to thank all the staff who have been involved with listening to the voice of local families and using the insights to shape services." Dr. Michelle Legg, Clinical Director for the Isle of Wight at Hampshire and Isle of Wight Integrated Care Board, said, "I want to say a huge thank you to all of our staff that work so hard every day for the families in their care."
Ryde will get more beach huts and Apley Tower will get a bright new future after a request to lease it was approved, releasing grant money for vital work. Natural England had already cleared planning permission for its renovation project and won a pledge for nearly £250,000 in Heritage Lottery Fund cash. The last piece of the jigsaw was its right to take on responsibility for the Grade 2 listed tower from the Isle of Wight Council. That request has now been approved by Council Leader Councillor Laura P.C. Wilcox under delegated powers. Last month, November, plans were approved to create an art gallery at the long-vacant Apley Tower alongside educational and retail use.
8 outside homes are needed for feral cats. And the 3 cats that are in the picture, I have to say, are pure black with great big yellow eyes peering out at you. An Island Pet Charity is appealing for outside homes for feral cats and kittens. Of 22 cats trapped and removed from a waste disposal site by Feline Welfare Isle of Wight, 8 still require homes suitable for them to live a feral lifestyle. Nikki Hazelgrove, the charity's founder, said it is not an option for any of the cats to be returned to the site. It is a far from suitable area to release back to, as there are too many health risks and hazards. It is the survival of the fittest. The ones who perish more often than not will go unnoticed. We still have our wildlife cameras in situ, and this will be the case until we feel there are none left at the site. This has been a mammoth task, but we are now at the stage of desperately seeking safe outside homes for the 8 remaining feral cats, whose ages range from 7 months to adult. We are looking for outside homes at private stables, farms or small holdings, with no cats already there. They are all health checked, neutered and microchipped. Ferals deserve a decent life, as do our domestics, but we really can't do this without the help of Island community. We have been running a fundraising appeal on social media to help with the veterinary costs, cat food, etc. for this colony. We raised £1,250, which is amazing. We would like to thank the island people very much for supporting us in this way, as well as all the moral support we have received. Feline Welfare is run totally by volunteers. We are a no-frills charity, and all money donated goes to benefit island cats directly. If you can help, please call 521-778.
Scarlet fever cases update. There were 4 suspected new cases of scarlet fever on the Isle of Wight to December the 11th, the lowest number since November. It is a significant drop from 32 cases reported on December the 4th, when the island's rate was the highest in England and Wales, and 22 recorded the previous week. In response to last week's high numbers, the island's Director of Public Health, Simon Bryant, urged caution. He said, "These are suspected cases of scarlet fever and not laboratory confirmed and reflect medical practitioner reporting of cases. Last week's surge triggered advice to parents and saw schools sending out emails."
Help helicopter crew save lives. The Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance is raising vital funds so it can continue to save lives this Christmas. In December 2021, the familiar yellow and green helicopter and its crew of medics answered 148 call-outs over the 2 counties, including 10 across Christmas Eve, Christmas Day and Boxing Day. It costs the Air Ambulance charity around £15,000 per day to maintain its service. Each mission costs, on average, £3,320. Among its Isle of Wight missions in 2022 was a call to Bembridge, where a woman fell 9 feet onto concrete steps, fracturing her skull and spine. Last month, Janine Ward, 71, from Lincoln, thanked the crew for saving her life and said, "I don't want to sound dramatic, but Trevor thought I was dead." Although her recovery is ongoing, Janine has achieved her target of getting home for Christmas, and we are being asked to help the charity achieve more happy endings. Visit hioWaa.org/donate to donate to the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance's fundraising appeal.
Pensioner drove off drunk. A West Wight pensioner who appeared drunk as he tried to get into his camper van just after he was seen drinking in an Isle of Wight pub later refused to provide drink drive samples for the police when they caught up with him. Colin Thompson of Colwell Road Freshwater admitted failing to provide a breath and blood specimen for analysis when suspected of drink driving on August the 4th. Police received a report from the landlord of the Sun Inn, Hulverston. Thompson had got into his Volkswagen camper van and drove off, after he struggled to climb aboard his vehicle, appearing drunk. Officers located Thompson at the Avenue in Totland a short time later, nursing a bleeding head wound. He had not carried any passengers, said Liz Miller, prosecuting at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court. The 75-year-old, who appeared to be highly impaired by drink, then refused a roadside breath test and was taken by ambulance to St Mary's Hospital, where he then refused to have a blood alcohol test. For Thompson, Henry Farley said his client had an unblemished driving record and no previous convictions to his name, but he had problems getting into his camper van due to a mobility problem. Up until now, he has led a blameless life. He spent 4 days in hospital with concussion, said Mr Farley. Mr Farley said that the head wound came about when Thompson toppled over in the street. Magistrates disqualified Thompson from driving for 18 months and handed him 6 months probation, which included 10 rehabilitation sessions. Thompson was also fined £153, with a £114 surcharge and £85 costs.
The history of Carisbrooke Priory prompts a new book. A new book has been produced about the history of Carisbrooke Priory, which stands on the hill beside Mountjoy Cemetery, just outside Newport. The priory was built in 1866 by Elizabeth, Countess of Clare, who wanted a Dominican monastic order established on the island. 3 years later, in January 1869, Queen Victoria visited the priory whilst staying at Osborne House. It was the first visit of a monarch to a Catholic monastic establishment for more than 300 years. The royal visit raised eyebrows at the time, but it led to improved relations between Catholics and Anglicans. Until then, there had been a determined effort to stop or hinder Catholics from building churches or chapels on the island. The Dominican order flourished at Carisbrooke for almost 100 years. The nuns led a simple life of prayer, meditation and devotion, cloistered away from the external world. In the late 60s, Carisbrooke, like many religious orders, began to decline until in 1989 there remained just 5 elderly nuns who could no longer maintain the priory. They were eventually moved to another priory, and today Carisbrooke Priory is used as a Christian pastoral and retreat centre. The book has been produced by the Isle of Wight Catholic History Society and is available from the Priory at just £3. Copies can also be ordered by email from iow-chs@outlook.com.
Ryde Church celebrates its 150th anniversary. The 186-foot spire of All Saints Church on Queen's Road dominates the skyline of Ryde. The church is not only notable for its grand size, but also for the magnificence of its architecture. Designed by Sir Gilbert Scott, it is a fine example of a Victorian decorated Gothic church and was built in 3 phases between 1869 and 1891. Her Royal Highness Princess Helena laid the foundation stone on behalf of her mother Queen Victoria in 1869. When the nave, chancel and sanctuary were completed in 1872, the church was consecrated by the Bishop of Winchester, Samuel Wilberforce, formerly Vicar of Bryston. The tower and spire were added in 1882 and the vestry was completed in 1891. Once inside the church, visitors can admire the soaring nave with its lines of arches and columns. There are original stained glass windows down the north aisle and above the altar, and the west window is a stunning example of more modern stained glass dating from 1951. By the west door is a beautiful alabaster font, and the marble pulpit won first prize in its class as the Great Exhibition of 1851. The church is also very proud of its Father Willis organ built in 1874. The parish celebrates the 150th anniversary of All Saints this Christmas at its carol service next Friday, December the 23rd, at 6 p.m. On the 2 Wednesdays before Christmas, the church will be open from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m, giving visitors an opportunity to admire the church and view a photographic exhibition of the church's history.
A chef threatened to burn down the pub. After becoming a drunken nuisance at a West Wight pub while customers watched the World Cup, a London chef then threatened to burn it down with the landlady and staff inside. Jonathan Dennis Underwood of Wimbledon Park Road, Wandsworth, London, faces a possible jail term after he admitted using threatening, abusive and insulting words and behaviour in Totland on November the 22nd. Underwood, who had been drinking at the Highdown Inn that afternoon, became a drunken nuisance and made obnoxious comments to customers while they were watching the World Cup football, said Liz Miller, prosecuting, at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court last Friday, when a female bartender told Underwood to leave the premises because he had been upsetting patrons. He bombarded her with vile insults. Underwood went on to warn her, "You don't know who I am, I have connections," before making a threat to burn down the pub with staff and the pub's landlady in it, together with a throat-slitting gesture. The 59-year-old continued to make vile rants against the landlady and staff outside the pub before he was eventually arrested. The incident lasted somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour, Mrs. Miller added. Underwood has convictions for a breach of the peace in 2015 and being drunk and disorderly in 2018. Police subsequently enforced an exclusion order for Underwood, preventing him visiting the Highdown Inn. For Underwood, Oscar Vincent said his client was very embarrassed and fully apologetic about his actions, which he claimed he had no memory of. Mr. Vincent said Underwood came to the Isle of Wight for a short break, in low mood following the breakup of a 10-year relationship and his work contract as a chef coming to an end. Underwood had enjoyed a meal and drinks at the Highdown Inn the previous day without incident and had enjoyed it so much he returned, the court heard. He chatted to customers and made the mistake of drinking spirits. The rest is a blur with him, eventually waking up in the cells at Newport Police Station, Mr. Vincent added. Underwood told the police he had no intention of carrying out his arson threats and that he had no issues with the landlady or the staff. Magistrates ordered a report on Underwood with all options open to the sentencing bench, to include imprisonment. Underwood was bailed to appear for sentencing at Wimbledon Magistrates Court on January the 13th.
There is still a ray of hope to rescue a West White restaurant which announced its closure over the weekend. Two businesses are run at Pizzeria in School Green Road, Freshwater, with a British menu served by Kath and Mike Dasent during the day, and a Chinese restaurant and a takeaway service provided by Pete and Ria Gower Crane, the building's leaseholders, in the evening. However, in a shock announcement on Saturday, Ria said to all our beloved customers and friends, "It is with the deepest regret that we inform you that Pizzeria will be closing its doors permanently at 9 p.m. on Friday, December the 23rd. Kath and Mike at Pizzeria will carry on their daytime operations until the end of December. Unfortunately, due to the substantial increase in our overheads, it is no longer viable to continue trading. We are extremely proud of all that we have accomplished in the past years and could not be more thankful to those who have believed in us." However, this week, Kath and Mike, who have operated their side of the business for the last 2 years, having previously run Totland Pier Cafe, told the Isle of Wight Observer that they were not giving up the fight. Kath confirmed it was all a bit of a shock to us when we learned that the restaurant was closing. We were absolutely mortified and gutted when we were told, but we have since spoken to the building's owner, James Han of Hong Kong Express in Newport. We are now hoping to keep our side of the business open, starting at the beginning of January. However, we still have to find £6,000 and the first month's rent up front. Hopefully, we can do that. Our customers have been brilliant, and they have already donated around £1,000 to keep us going. If we can continue, it will be a solely British menu during the day, and we would probably open Friday and Saturday nights in the summer. We are still opening on Christmas Day, and in the last couple of weeks our customers have donated enough money to give a free meal to 8 local people who may not otherwise be able to afford it. It's a wonderful gesture and shows what we're all about.
An honour for Kate as she moves on. The County Press's community content editor, Kate Young, has been highly commended in the Unsung Hero category of the Women in Local News Awards 2022. Kate, who grew up in Cowes, was recognised for her work in championing local people, businesses and good causes. The accolade is tinged with sadness for keen runner Kate, who is leaving the County Press at Christmas after a marathon stint of 26 years. She started at the newspaper in June 1996 and wrote many of the stories for the County Press's MRI scanner appeal. Kate went over to full-time feature writing in September 1999 and worked hard with organisers on several local events which the County Press supported, including the Isle of Wight International Charity Classic Car Extravaganza and the County Press Garden Show. Helping charitable causes has always been her passion, and in 2008 she undertook a Trans-Siberian railway journey that spawned a travel book which raised several £1,000s for Mountbatten. In more recent years she has done sponsored runs for charities including Wessex Cancer Trust's Isle of Wight Centre. In October 2019 she became editor of Isle of Wight Living magazine, and was also the key Isle of Wight writer on several NewsQuest book projects, including the VE Day and the Queen's Platinum Jubilee souvenir publications. Last April, Kate was hospitalised with sepsis, but just 3 months later, she did the 66-mile Isle of Wight Challenge over 2 days in aid of the UK Sepsis Trust. More recently, Kate has done fundraising events for East Cowes-based charity Mad Aid, where her husband Hugh and her brother Mark are volunteers. She's leaving the county press to join Mad Aid, which helps Ukrainians and Moldovans in need, as the charity's grant manager. Kate said, "I've had an incredible time. I've lived through many changes, and I was even the reporter on duty for the Millennium Shift."
Poignant tribute to an Ireland rugby legend. Rugby legend and family man Graham Peter Thomas died days after his 67th birthday on November the 22nd. He was born in Coventry on November the 13th, 1956 to Kenneth and Patience Thomas, younger brother to Jack. Graham attended junior school at St Christopher's in Alsea Park, moving to City of Coventry Secondary Modern Boarding School before progressing to Henry VIII Grammar School for A-levels. In 1974, Graham started work at the GPO, where his father worked, which later became BT. After a successful career of 40 years, he retired as senior manager with Openreach in 2015. During his childhood, Graham and his family spent many holidays on the Isle of Wight, and in 1972, at the age of 16, he met soulmate Angela in Sandown Bay. Several happy summers passed where they would both have seasonal jobs at the Broadway Park Hotel, where his father-in-law was to be the head chef. In 1977, Graham and Angela married at St Blasius Church in Shanklin. They moved to Coventry, where Graham's employment remained, and started their family. Their eldest son, Daniel, was born in 1979, and their youngest, Gareth, in 1981. They then made the decision the best place to raise their two boys was on the island. They returned in 1982, buying their forever home in Shanklin, Graham making daily commutes to work and having a second job as a barman. Winters were spent on the rugby pitch when living in Coventry with Kersley RFC, and upon moving to the island with Sandown Shanklin RFC, where he has spent the last decade as chairman and then president. After his retirement, he spent many hours maintaining the facilities. He spent summers at the barbecue or at his beach hut in the bay, happily surrounded by his doting family. Holidays were spent on the UK canals and touring France, Spain and Portugal, where he cultivated his love of wine. Graham loved music and had not missed an Isle of Wight festival since 2004. He spent many years as school governor at Sandown High School and volunteered with Shanklin Rotary Club. He enjoyed a good pint of ale at his favourite pub, the Chine Inn. He leaves behind his beloved Angela, sons Dan and Gaz, daughter-in-laws Kate and Katie, and granddaughters Iris and Bea. All welcome at his funeral at 10 a.m. on Friday, January the 6th at the Isle of Wight Crematorium, and the service will also be live streamed from Sandown and Shanklin RFCs.
Good news on Ryde Highway as it reopens. Queen's Road in Ryde has reopened, Southern Water has confirmed. One of the main routes into the town was completely closed on Monday unexpectedly as part of ongoing work on a blocked sewer. It forced bus operator Southern Vectis to divert some of its services and meant some stops were not served this week. Routes 4 and 9 have been entering and leaving Ryde via Argyle Street instead. Queen's Road has been either partially or fully closed for more than 4 months since repairs to a retaining wall got underway. Island Road's 10-week project was completed in October, but it overlapped with Southern Water's emergency work to fix a sewer. The utility firm has described its project as complicated and has warned it could take months. Throughout both sets of work, traffic flow has mostly been one way, towards Ryde, but this week the road was completely closed, causing delays. Yesterday, Thursday, Southern Water told the county press, "We aim to complete the current phase of works before the weekend, allowing the road to reopen. Teams will need to return to the site in the new year to line the sewer. We will provide further updates about these planned works as soon as we are able. We do know how disruptive these works have been."
A chef almost 3 times over the drink drive limit when he collided with a neighbour's car after watching an England World Cup match was shopped to police by his own principled father. Benjamin Burnett admitted drink driving during the early hours of November 22nd. The 21-year-old collided with a neighbour's parked car, causing minor damage, but it only came to the police's attention after his father informed them. When officers arrived at his home, Burnett of the Finches, Carisbrooke, initially told them he had not drunk anything, said Anne Smout, prosecuting at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on Tuesday. He blew an alcohol reading of 97 micrograms, and the legal limit is 35. Burnett, with no previous convictions, later told police he drank a lot of lager, estimated to be 8 pints, at the Hogshead pub that evening while watching the World Cup. Burnett was banned from driving for 25 months.
Aussie's Christmas card is a competition winner. The winner of the Isle of Wight Council's Chairman's Christmas card competition is 9-year-old Aussie Corns. Aussie will see his picture of a festive look at St Catherine's Oratory with Santa Claus flying overhead featured on the Isle of Wight Council Chairman's official Christmas card this year. Council Chairman, Councillor Claire Critchison, called on talented pupils at Knighton Primary School to come up with their best designs based on a local landmark or theme. With help from parish councillors and other Isle of Wight councillors, a winner from each year group was chosen, alongside an overall winner. Councillor Critchison said all the entries were brilliant, and the Year 6 entries were extremely hard to judge because of the excellent standard. Thank you, and well done to all the pupils that produced such wonderful designs.
Failings found by inspectors. Ryde School must submit an improvement plan to the Secretary of State for Education by Monday, after failings were identified by the Independent Schools Inspectorate. In response, the school, an independent day and boarding school for boys and girls, said it has already taken action to address issues over the use of discriminatory language and staff recruitment. Inspectors visited the fee-paying private school between May the 10th and 13th, and a report was published afterwards. It found immediate action was needed to ensure respectful behaviour among pupils, to prevent discrimination, and to call out inappropriate language. It called for the school to ensure a sufficient number of suitable references were obtained for new staff, as well as for more checks on staff moving to the school from abroad, including for medical fitness. In November, a letter was sent to Ryde School about failings against the national minimum standards for boarding schools. A plan of action is required by December the 19th, while steps towards improvement are expected by February the 17th in 2023. A follow-up inspection is due to take place. Failings were noted in early years education as well as among older pupils. Improvements were required in leadership and management and in supporting pupils' spiritual, moral, social and cultural development. The welfare and health of safety of pupils sparked concern. The school was required to answer concerns about the safe recruitment of some of its staff. Inspectors also found the school had failed to protect some pupils from discrimination and to provide individualised care for boarders. A school spokesperson said action points had been implemented during the summer term and is taking concerns about staff recruitment very seriously. The school, with 770 day pupils and more than 50 boarders, says it is now compliant and has updated its records and procedures. Over concerns some older pupils did not demonstrate a strong understanding of how their own use of language can reflect and convey disrespect and discrimination, the school said, "The Inspectorate has recommended we further strengthen senior school pupils' understanding in this area. We are building on the work the school has already carried out around equality, diversity and inclusion."
A drunk man pushed an officer. A drunken Sandown man who kicked off after his mother kicked him out of the family home was warned he came close to being jailed by Isle of Wight magistrates. Terry Lewis flouted a suspended sentence order, an SSO, by admitting being drunk and disorderly on Westwood Road Ryde possessing cannabis and assaulting an emergency worker at Newport Police Station on October the 29th. The day before, his elderly mother told him to leave the family home, and then he drank alcohol. Lewis's mother called the police when he returned the next day, demanding to be let in. On their arrival, police say Lewis, 62, of Avenue Road, was drunk and abusive, explained Siobhan Oxley, prosecuting at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on Friday. At Newport Police Station, Lewis hurt a detention officer by pushing his chest. Lewis told police he had little memory of the incidents, except when he got angry after his mother had kicked him out. Cannabis seized from him was for his own use to help with combating mental health problems. Lewis, who said it did not end well, was mortified by his behaviour, particularly towards police officers. Last year, Lewis was convicted of 3 assaults, including one against an emergency worker, for which he was handed a 4-month SSO, together with possessing an offensive weapon and making threats with a billhook. Lewis then breached the SSO, which was extended. For Lewis, Amy Hosell said her client was ashamed and that he had struggled with anxiety and depression after his wife took her own life. He'd given up. He bought alcohol to end his life. He was in a very dark place, said Miss Hosell. Magistrates also heard from Trevor Blaney of the pop-up soup kitchen in Sandown, who rescued Lewis from homelessness and explained how Lewis detoxed in hospital following a seizure. Lewis said, "I had one thing on my mind, to die. I know I'm disgusting when I drink, but I've put it behind me." Magistrates extended Lewis's SSO to March the 13th with a year's probation, to include wearing an alcohol abstinence tag, 120 days, with £114 surcharge and £85 costs.
And now we move on to White Memories and Nostalgia. And I've got an article here that's headlined Some Famous Women of White, which is written by David White. There are many interesting women in history, both good and not so good, who have associations with the island. The infamous Dorothy O'Grady narrowly escaped the hangman's noose after having been accused of spying. She was the first British woman to be accused of spying and sentenced to hang, but fortunately for her, had the sentence reduced on appeal to 14 years imprisonment. She had lived a checkered life in and out of prison for stealing and later turning to prostitution. Upon marrying, she left London and moved to Sandown, and it was there that during the Second World War she had apparently been observed monitoring and making notes while in the vicinity of restricted areas. She had also been caught cutting communication wires. Following bail, she had failed to attend her trial, having gone on the run, but shortly after was apprehended and tried as a saboteur and a spy. She was eventually released after 9 years and returned to Sandown, where she lived until her death in 1985. The government files were released to the public in 1995, but some of the information had mysteriously been lost. Helen Duncan was a practicing occultist and medium who spent some time in Ryde, and it was during the Second World War that at one of her séances she told of the sinking of the Navy warship HMS Barham. Although this had been kept a secret from the public still to be released, government authorities suspected her knowledge to have come via enemy sources. Upon investigation, no evidence to this fact could be uncovered. Therefore, she was arrested in 1944, tried and imprisoned for 9 months, sentenced under the Witchcraft Act of 1735. Upon her trial and conviction, Winston Churchill called the whole affair utter tomfoolery. This was one of the last witchcraft trials ever held in the UK. Upon her release, she continued practicing as a medium, and despite a campaign to overturn her recorded conviction as a witch, it remained on file. Duncan died at her home in Edinburgh in 1956.
Mary Gleed Tuttiett was a famous local novelist writing under the name of Maxwell Gray, who was born in 1846 at Pyle Street in Newport and later moved to Castle Road. She suffered from asthma and acute arthritis and spent most of her time confined to her sofa. Her father, Frank Tuttiett, was a medical surgeon, and occasionally she would ride in her father's carriage when he went on visits to his patients. Her most famous novel was The Silences of Dean Maitland, set in and around mostly Cowbourne, but also other island villages and towns. In her story, she would often slightly change the names, i.e. Cowbourne to Malbourne, and Newport to Oldport, Swainston to Swainston, different spelling, and Brading to Barling, and Arraton to Arden. Although she wrote many books, The Silence of Dean Maitland proved the bestseller, and one of her literary admirers was Alfred Tennyson, who had visited her at her home. Eventually, upon her parents' death, she moved to London, where she lived until 1923. Another famous island woman was Pearl Mary Teresa Richards, who was born in 1867 and wrote under the pen name of John Oliver Hobbs. She had a brief, unsuccessful marriage to Mr. Reginald Craigie, by which she had one son. Her first book, Some Emotions and a Moral, proved to be a sensation in its day, selling 80,000 copies in only a few weeks. She also wrote some successful theatre productions. Her father, John Morgan Richards, and his wife, Laura, both lived at Steep Hill Castle, and their daughter lived at Craigie Lodge in St. Lawrence. In 1905, she suddenly died of a heart attack while visiting London. Dolly Shepherd is perhaps best described as an early career daredevil. Dolly, real name Elizabeth Spencer, had lived in Ventnor. She was born in 1896 and in her 20s took to the skies to perform dangerous stunts, including a trapeze act suspended under a hot air balloon, after which she would parachute to the ground using a crude form of chute. At one point in her career, she actually ascended to over 15,000 feet. It was in 1908 that she also was involved in a daring rescue when one of her co-parachutists' chutes failed to open. Dolly grabbed her female friend in mid-flight and safely brought her down to the ground. Following many more high-level daring jump performances, Dolly decided to retire from the skies in 1912. During the First World War, she took to driving a munitions truck, and it was during this time that she met and married her future husband and became Elizabeth Sedgwick. Her final daring achievement was in her mid-90s, when she flew with the Red Arrows display team. She died aged 96.
Now we move on to My View, and I have an article here written by Catherine James, and the headline reads, Turf Wars, the battle to beat plastic grass. Back in spring 2019, horrified by the unimaginable loss of invertebrate biomass, I wrote in praise of mini beasts and their vital place in the ecosystem. I proclaimed that we could all do our bit and pledged to revive my perished balcony. I decommissioned all the dusty pots bristling with parched and miserable twigs and invested in some bigger water-retaining troughs. I figured if I plant it, they will come.
And come they did. My outdoor spot is now a riot of enticing flowers. Year-round osteopermums, hardy roses, elegant verbena, and in the window boxes, violas with faces like kittens. I watch with delight as flying pollinators buzz down for a sip of nectar. A hummingbird hawk moth is a regular visitor, hovering while its ridiculously long and agile tongue probes my petals. But it's not all fluttering beauties. My solar fountain is a nursery for thousands of wiggly mosquito larvae. Wasps perch on its edges, patterned faces lapping at the cool water. Ants have dominion, farming aphids on the stems of lupins till they are encrusted with them, suckling out sap and secreting sugary honeydew. In the dank depths of the containers burrow centipedes, woodlice and worms. I am honoured to provide habitat for them all. So it amazed me when listening to BBC Radio 4's Gardener's Question Time how so many of these horticulturists began their question with the words, "How do I get rid of?" I'm no Alan Titchmarsh, but I'd say enjoy the mistletoe, fungi and moss. Admire that pest and weed for being tenacious enough to live or grow in the wrong place, if it's only wrong for you. But if you really hate your garden and every living thing in it, the artificial grass business, an offshoot of the fossil fuel industry, is peddling a quick and sterile fix for your outside space.
At first glance, covering your yard with green plastic might seem like a neat solution. After all, we have been programmed to admire a trimmed and tidy lawn, with whole industries dependent on us buying liquid conditioners, expensive machinery and herbicides, and it's daunting. In addition to the cost of the tragic carpet laying, it requires levelling materials, underlay, pegs, adhesive and joining tape, and after the expense of installation, a synthetic garden is not maintenance free. In the summer, as the pseudo-sword heats, not cools, your naked toes, you can stimulate the sweet smell of freshly mown grass by squirting a synthetic aroma over the plastic blades, which, by the way, might need combing back into erectness. Meanwhile, underneath, having been starved of oxygen and the stinking, rotting corpses of worms and other invertebrates, better have another spray of that lawn deodorant. Ersatz turf has no climate benefits, no nutritional value for soil, plants nor animals. It doesn't soak up moisture and releases microplastics into the environment. Even its advocates say it might fade, melt or need disinfecting, even vacuuming. Yes, I have ants in my plants, but at least my garden is alive.
Now we're going to move on to some public information and things that are happening on the Isle of Wight. Oh, the first one, though, says no festive jingling over this weekend. Due to strong winds and heavy rain forecast for Sunday, organisers have reluctantly cancelled Mountbatten's festive-themed Jingle All the Way event. Mountbatten's Chief Executive, Nigel Hartley, apologised for disappointment and inconvenience and added, "While we were looking forward to seeing everyone at this new fundraising event, the safety of everyone is most important to us. Anyone who wants a refund can contact our fundraising team, but if people wish to treat the cost of their ticket as a donation, we would be extremely grateful, as, like everybody, Mountbatten is facing challenges with the cost of living crisis. Participants can request a refund by emailing fundraising@mountbatten.org.uk.
Manor houses reveal the wealth of their owners. On the island, there are 3 great Tudor manor houses that can easily be seen on the back of the Wight. The earliest of these is Mottistone, now owned by the National Trust. Part of this building, the south wing, dates from the 1400s and the remainder is 1500s. The date stone above the main doorway displays 1567. Built of local stone, Mottistone also boasts several courses of stone slabs on the lower part of the roof with clay tiles above. Many of the great island families have owned the manor, including the De Insulas, who took their name from the island, and their name later changed to Lisle, one of the richest island families. The farmland was good, providing income. The Cheek family held the manor for over 300 years, and it was they who built the present house. Perhaps the house would have been changed in later centuries had it not been for a landslip which engulfed the back of the house in 1706. The livable part of the house was demoted to just a farmhouse for the next 200 years. In 1887, Sir Charles Seeley bought the estate and retired to Brooke House. It was his son, General Jack Seeley, an architect, who in 1927 set about restoring Mottistone. Some 1,400 tons of slipped soil were removed and the wall was found to be in good condition. The building was restored to a comfortable home. The large barn protects the house from the southwest winds and was altered in the 1900s to create an imposing entrance to the house. Wolverton Manor at Shorewell was built in the typical E shape of the Elizabethan period by John Dingley. There had been a house here before Norman times, possibly surrounded by a moat. The Elizabethan house required no such defences. It suffered a few changes over the years, such as sash windows being added to the western half in the 18th century and an uncompleted Venetian window on the back of the building. By the 1970s, the building was derelict and luckily was bought and slowly restored over several years using appropriate materials. Sitting in the Great Hall listening to Tudor recorder music at the finale to Living History Week in the 1980s, the owner said, "Do you think the house realises what is happening to it?" The answer was yes, as the Tudor spirit of the house was so apparent. Nearby West Court was built in several stages, starting around 1517. It retains the typical stone mullioned windows of the Tudor period. There is a later Jacobean wing, giving the buildings a comfortable protective shape similar to Mottiston. Like Wolverton, a massive stone barn was constructed at West Court, again giving some protection to the house from the winds off the sea. The Delisle family were also owners of this manor in the Norman times. The back of the White saw prosperity in Tudor times as shown by these beautiful buildings.
The Isle of Wight Singers Ride Chorus, under the new direction of Jorgita Lystrumate, is welcoming new members to join us in our new repertoire. Thursday evening rehearsals are held at the United Reformed Church, Upton Road, Haylands, Ryde, at 7:30. For further information, please telephone our chairman, Keith Everett, on 01983 88 3800, or our membership secretary 01983 740 284.
And now we're moving on to What's On. And Rudy's Christmas Cracker, a youth theatre production at the Apollo Theatre in Newport, they take a trip to the North Pole to meet Rudy and the elves. Next Thursday to Saturday, and the dates of that are December the 22nd to the 24th at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. And tickets can be obtained by calling 210010.
And at Medina Theatre, the pantomime is Jack and the Beanstalk. It's following the huge success of last year's spectacular pantomime Cinderella. Made-to-measure productions are delighted to be returning to the Medina Theatre this Christmas with a hilarious brand new production of Jack and the Beanstalk. Last year's pantomime was described as fabulously hilarious, and audiences told us they laughed from start to finish, so don't miss it. If you've never been to a One Leisure panto before, then make it this year. You won't be disappointed. It runs from the 20th to the 29th of December at 2 o'clock. Tickets for adults are £19, juniors and seniors £16, and a family of 4 £62. You book your tickets by phoning 01983 82 3884.
The Shanklin Theatre is presenting the production from Spotlight Isle of Wight, their production of Cinderella, and their production runs from the 17th of December to the 1st of January, and tickets can be purchased by calling 868,000. Isle of Wight Steam Railway mince pie and New Year's Day specials on the 26th, 27th of December and the 1st of January. One of the only island attractions open during this time. After the indulgence of the festive period, enjoy a relaxing train journey aboard one of our very cosy Victorian and Edwardian carriages. You can book your tickets at isleofwightsteamrailway.co.uk.
And now we're moving on to correspondence. And the first letter that I have, it's called Consider Giving the Gift of Life this Christmas. and it comes from Anthony Clarkson, Director of the Organ and Tissue Donation and Transplantation for NHS Blood and Transplant. More than 6,800 people in the UK are spending the festive season / start of 2023 waiting for an organ transplant. And over 220 of these patients are children, as of December the 8th. These mums, dads, wives, husbands, partners, daughters, sons can only be saved by someone giving them the greatest gift, the gift of life. At a time of giving and making resolutions to do good, let people know you want to save lives. Signing up to be an organ donor is quick and easy and makes it easier for families if they know what you want. Give hope to the thousands of people and hundreds of children on the transplant waiting list. Join the NHS Organ Donor Register at www.organdonation.nhs.uk. Please tell your family about your decision so that they know what you want.
Give Bob a round of applause, writes Ian Welby from Whitwell. Congratulations to Bob Seeley for a significant national planning win that will help protect the island. We've all read with dismay the seemingly ever-growing number of announcements of large-scale Isle of Wight density greenfield developments threatening our island countryside. The worst schemes, such as Pennyfeathers and Westacre, have attracted literally hundreds of objections as residents have fought in vain to protect their much-valued green space. Until now, developers have had the whip hand being able to bypass local views by appeal to mandatory top-down government housing targets. Even if their destructive schemes are rejected by the council, they will likely win an appeal to the Planning Inspectorate, citing the island's failure to meet its totally unrealistic top-down housing targets. The Isle of Wight Campaign for Protection of Rural England, the CPRE, has highlighted just how ill-suited these targets are to the island's unique housing market. But last week, our MP Bob Seeley won a significant victory for the island, leading the campaign in Westminster to make top-down housing targets advisory and recognise the unique circumstances facing the places such as the island in delivering housing. Through this important national legislative change, Bob has helped ensure we deliver the affordable brownfield first housing the island needs, while protecting its natural landscape so many of us value so much.
Now, Chris Offer from Brading writes about island street cleaning woes. I wonder what answers I would get if I asked people how often they think our residential roads are cleaned by Island Roads. In brackets, the answer is later. Our residential road in Brading, in common with many other roads lined by deciduous trees, currently has a covering of leaf mulch, which wasn't too much of a problem in the recent dry weather, other than looking a mess, but is likely to become hazardous when it's wet, and even more so now it's frozen. Asking Island Roads to clean the street has become a bit of an annual ritual. I or one of my neighbours report the need for cleaning, and a week or so later along comes the street cleaning lorry. Job done. Not so this year. I received a response from a manager at Island Roads informing me that our district steward had attended site and advised there are no hazardous issues that require a reactive cleansing job. I was also informed of the frequency of the street cleaning cycle. Answer: once every 38 weeks. Presumably whether it's needed or not. Our road was apparently last cleaned in August 22 and won't be deemed to require cleaning again until April 2023. That's still 5 months away, and this as we contemplate a 5% increase in council tax next year. Oh, by the way, do I recall an announcement back at the beginning of the year by Isle of Wight Council about the formation of a cross-party group to examine fly tipping, dog fouling, etc.? which was to report back later in the year. Well, it's possible I missed the report, of course, but if the group hasn't reported yet, there's not much of the year left, is there? I'll keep my eye open for it.
Penelope Baker of Lake writes, failure to consult properly. As a so-called consultation comes to an end in Lake via the parish council, the failure to consult a community in a transparent and inclusive way needs to be addressed. The consultation was in a parish magazine which many do not read, with no reference to the consultation on the cover of the magazine. The consultation was in an article headed Plans for New Road Toilets. Consultation was not included in the title, but at the bottom of the article was a reference to the consultation closing on December the 8th. The farce of what should happen to the third set of public toilets in Lake, which sits on a high-profile site at the end of the High Street, supported by 3 major bus routes, has gone on for years, with the ideas of parish councillors only ever entertained. There are other options, one of which would help to generate income and community activity in a high street which generally is only ever passed through on the way to somewhere else. Unfortunately, Lake Parish Council has never asked residents what they would like to happen on that site, rather than continuing a financial burden and eyesore and proposing to spend £200,000, including loans with high interest payments and increasing parish council precept. Perhaps the Isle of Wight Council could require basic standards in consultation to be required, including residents' suggestions.
Patricia Dow from Ryde says trying to shop local in Ryde proved to be a big mistake. As Tuesday was a freezing cold day, I decided to shop local. What a big mistake that was. At 12:10, I parked in Lynn Street in Ryde and walked up the High Street. I needed to visit 3 shops. The first was closed, though I was told by a passer-by it had been open earlier. Then the same thing occurred at the second shop. Thankfully, the third shop, a multiple of course, was open. What a sad reflection this is on a town where my father once owned a successful business. He would never have closed the shop door before 6 o'clock, or until the last customer had left.
Jay Bowen of Newport writes, thank you for publishing my photograph last week that showed a pile of quarried ballast in Wootton adjacent to sign opposing the sourcing of such material locally. Well, it seems that particular case of suspected NIMBYism was not an isolated incident. I came across this scene in Palmer's Road, Wootton this week. Once again, in the shadow of a poster opposing local gravel extraction is a pile of building material that, it is reasonable to assume, has been similarly quarried, albeit out of sight and out of mind of Wage, Wootton again travel extraction, supporters. For me, both images speak for themselves, and the message is clear. We all want and use building materials, so surely the answer is to quarry them locally in a way that can be regulated and controlled by the local planning process. Thinking that we can build our driveways, patios and extensions without a thought about where these materials have come from is, like Wage's arguments, simply not sustainable. The BBC In Touch programme follows, and there is no scaffolding news this week.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. Tonight, are there any sports which can't be adapted to be played by visually impaired people?
You'll probably be aware with the football, there's a ball called a jangle ball that's obviously got the bell inside it. But that doesn't work that well with netball because obviously it needs a contact with the floor to hear the bell.
More on the latest attempts to make netball accessible later in the programme. But first, you know that your emails and voice messages are very much a big driver of what we cover on In Touch, and they've been particularly plentiful over the past couple of weeks, not least on Pauline's account of the abrupt way she was told she would probably go blind, followed by a second opinion saying this was very unlikely to happen. Here's just one more of the many messages that we've had about this one from David Small.
I was a patient under leading surgeons and consultants. After months of laser surgery and injections to repair retinal damage, a leading professor one day invited me into her room.
Hello, David. Do sit down.
I laid my hand on the back of a chair.
Today we'll register you blind. I need your signature.
I said, but I can't see where to put it. Having done that, I burst into tears. And she said,
David, don't be a crybaby. You'll get used to it. See you next week.
It was so cold, so impersonal. It left a psychological effect for years, those few moments.
There are more, but why does this still happen? We've approached the Royal College of Ophthalmologists to put that question to them and to ask about what training eye surgeons get in breaking the news. They've told us no one is available this week to do this, but we will ensure that we get the college onto In Touch in the new year. But Chris McMillan was one of those who asked to hear more about the work of so-called ECLOs, or Eye Clinical Liaison Officers, one of whom, Pauline's Hospital, told us they were about to appoint. And it so happens that another email prompted by Pauline's story came from Paula Thomas. Now, Paula is currently an ECLO at Great Ormond Street Hospital, where she works with the parents of children diagnosed with eye problems, but was indeed one of the early ECLOs based in Brighton. She joins us now. Paula, welcome. We'll come on to your role in a moment, but you said in your email that in your working life, you've been aware of this problem of how people are told what they're bound to regard as devastating news.
It shocks me that this happens, that certainly doesn't happen with us at Great Ormond Street, or at least I hope it doesn't. It's not just how you're told, but I think it's your understanding of what all of those words mean. And also because of the nature of what's happening is you may only hear certain parts of a conversation and not take it all home. I think it's a combination of all of those things and why it's so important to have an eye clinic liaison officer or equivalent, because we're not all called ECLOs. And prior to ECLOs, there was other people within a hospital, social services or a local group.
Can I ask you why you think it is, from the ophthalmologist's point of view, why do you think it does happen? I appreciate it doesn't happen every time by any means, but what's the problem there, do you think?
It's, to a consultant, to the ophthalmologist, this is what they do day in, day out. And I think people can get quite glib about that, if you're repeating very similar things all of the time. And you do kind of wonder that, to them it's just language and not recognising that you've got an individual sat in front of you and they may have had no preparation. Do the consultants think that this is what's going to happen, so therefore it's not a shock? I really don't know.
Is it getting any better, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. And I think knowledge is key. So I think consultants and ophthalmologists have a larger team around them now. So rather than it just being a consultant and a consultant-led clinic, you have specialist nurses, you have specialist optoms and orthoptists, the fellows, the family officers or the eye clinic liaison officers. And I think they're much better about, rather than it being I'm the consultant kind of mentality, it's very much I'm part of a team mentality. So certainly in my last 10 years at GOSH, I've seen this kind of change, and it's very much a team approach. That's my experience.
But isn't it just a matter of common humanity that you deliver such news gently? I mean, surely, Doc Martin is a gross TV exaggeration, isn't he? You'd hope.
Yes. Is it too many patients in a day? They're overworked, they're one in, one out. Do people need to slow things down? Take a more holistic approach? Yes, and I think that's still true of even with us at Great Ormond Street, where we take great care, is that there is always those kind of pressures, and I think there has been an improvement.
So tell us more about the role of the ECLO, the Eye Care Liaison Officer. What is it that you do exactly?
So I'm described in a nutshell, and this is me specifically, because I think ECLOs, depending on where you work and your relationship with the team, has a massive effect. But I'm described by my consultants that I work with is Paula does everything that is sight related but not clinical, and certainly not surgical. We really don't want me that side of the curtain. So it can involve absolutely everything. It might be sort of initial contact with the family before they visit us. It could be that I sit in on consultation, so I can then, after the appointment, is that I will go through that appointment with them. If there's things that they haven't understood, I can repeat and go back over. It's then describing and explaining the process of registering somebody with their visual impairment and what that actually means. And then it goes sort of further than that, you signpost to what's relevant for that family, because every family is going to be different. And it's age, it's diagnosis, it's if it's hereditary, so there's already a knowledge within the family where they live, and that changes. So it's an ongoing relationship with a family over many, many years. They've been through their local ophthalmic centre prior to coming to us. So there's already some knowledge or some history, but it's sort of undoing perhaps what's been said or describing it again. And also, unfortunately, coming to GOSH, everyone thinks that we're going to give them a different diagnosis or there's something we can do. So it's preparing its expectations and managing those expectations.
And presumably part of the problem is that people perhaps don't understand the degrees of vision loss that you can actually have. And maybe even the term blind is kind of tossed about rather readily, even by eye surgeons.
Yeah, and it's a shift in language. I mean, over just the time that I've worked within the sort of sight loss sector, that's changed. So, blind and partially sighted to sight impaired and severely sight impaired. And it's explaining what that means. And this is why I do my job, I suppose. It is going through sort of what that means and when it happens to you at what point of your life as well.
And I guess the problem is ECLOs aren't everywhere, are they? Clearly, Pauline's Hospital hasn't got one yet.
No, and and even if you have or a hospital has got them, it's where they are within that system, and how consultants and patients contact that ECLO. So even if they haven't got an ECLO, they may have a local charity that's present, or they might, through PALS or similar, or it's a specialist nursing team. But that's only good if the consultants then can tell the patients that this exists. And if they don't, you can walk in and out of there and never come across them.
And what we haven't said yet is that you yourself are visually impaired. And when your sight deteriorated when you were an adult, you really struggled with news that must have been a possibility that you'd live with for most of your life.
Yes, so when I was diagnosed, paediatric or very specific paediatric ophthalmic care really didn't exist. And I'm now told that, it was before internet and being able to find out information from my parents' point of view. The system was quite different. My consultant, and we'd never do this now, told my parents that I'd have no vision at all by the time I was in my early teens. And as time went on, I thought I'd cheated the system. Yes, it had changed, but it hadn't gone. And I went to a specialist school, and at the time of losing significant vision, I worked for a large organisation that specifically supported people with sight loss. So I was surrounded by the right people. I'd been to school with children with a visual impairment, all the preparation you could possibly do, because you just can't imagine what it's going to be like until it happens.
Paula Thomas, thank you very much for getting in touch with us in the first place and for coming on. Thank you. And while we're on the topic of getting answers to your emails, we have had many more on the difficulties blind people are experiencing in accessing BBC Sounds. There are moves underway to address this problem. We promise that we'll continue to seek answers in the new year. Now, regular In Touch listeners will know that there are very few sports which haven't been adapted in some way to be played by partially sighted and totally blind people. Adaptations of games like football, cricket are pretty well known. Only in recent months we've featured a version of tennis, and of course the Paralympics showcase visually impaired people in a whole range of events. But netball, I don't think in all the years I've been presenting In Touch, we've ever featured it until today. But it can be adapted, is being adapted, and there is a festival of netball due to take place on Thursday week, that's the 22nd, in London, where potential players of 12 and upwards are invited to come along. It's at the Copper Box Arena in London's Olympic Park. It's organised in conjunction with Metro Blind Sport, and joining me is Sam Bird, who is Chief Executive of London Pulse, which has a professional netball team which plays in the Netball Super League. Sam Bird, first of all, I must be honest, I'm quite a sports nut, but I really am pretty ignorant when it comes to netball. What are the challenges which it poses to be played by visually impaired people?
Well, it's a great game. I'm biased because I've been playing the game ever since I was a child and still coach it now. But it's a great team game, and it's fantastic for people of all shapes and sizes and fitness levels. But it is a hard game to learn with a visual impairment because the ball can move at speed, and there are 7 players on each side, and the ball moves from the centre of the court down the court to score a goal. A netball goal is a bit like a basketball goal, but without the backboard. So it requires really accurate shooting. And so it's been a fantastic journey for us to look at adapting the game for visually impaired athletes and us learning how to keep the game of netball authentic, but to enable visually impaired athletes to play.
Are we talking mainly about people with some sight, or is there a possibility? Because people start off by thinking, oh, totally blind people won't be able to play that. And then somebody comes up with adaptations to do it. I mean, is that something you're looking at?
It is something we'd like to work towards. It's a fairly new project. We sort of started to work with Metro Blind Sport just before the pandemic, and then sort of got through that, used that time to train some of our staff how to teach the game. And then coming out of the pandemic, we've run a series of 4 lots of 10 sessions for visually impaired adult players, and they've grown in confidence as the sessions have gone on. And I've been really impressed in terms of how quickly they've developed their skills. And I wouldn't rule this out, but I would say that at the moment we would like to become better and keep developing the game with our visually impaired athletes' feedback to make the game even better before we'd take that step. But yes, I would hope so in the long term.
So what are the differences people who know their netball would notice in a game adapted for visually impaired people?
Well, it looks, I'm pleased to say, looks and feels very similar. So there's still the same number of players, so 7 aside. The passing, there are different passing styles. So far our visually impaired athletes have been more comfortable with a sort of ball to their body, so that if in the event that they don't quite handle the ball that well with their hand, they can cushion the ball with their body, so that the passing tends to be at the body rather than higher up over a person's head that you might get in a sighted netball match. But the passing and the rules are the same. The shooting is still the same, and shooting's great fun, and it's always the best part of the training session when everyone gets a chance to put up shots. And it's amazing just sort of by getting your range that the athletes, VI athletes, become very accurate on their shooting. So it looks and feels very similar.
Is the ball the same?
You'll probably be aware with a football, there's a ball called a jangle ball that's obviously got the bell inside it.
Yep.
But that doesn't work that well with netball because obviously it needs contact with the floor to hear the bell. The feedback we got from our athletes was it was better just to have a really vivid coloured netball. Our club colours are pink and black, so we've brought in luminous pink netballs, and the players prefer just having a really strong colour ball that they can pick up the colour rather than the bell. The bell works if you're doing a bounce pass or something, for example, because you obviously hear it, but it's not as useful as you might think if you were using a ball with a bell for football.
If it's not been played that much so far by visually impaired people, who are you actually expecting to come along to the festival?
Well, so far we've had some amazing adults that often take part in other visually impaired and blind sports. So we've got some representatives that actually representing Great Britain in goalball at the moment, which is amazing. And we've got really proficient tennis players and people who are confident to try lots of sports. But what this festival is trying to achieve is to attract some younger children to come and have a go, because we'd love to try to start developing a visually impaired sort of netball for boys and girls of age 12 and above, just to bring them into the netball family, really, and share our fabulous game with them as well. We've connected with a few schools in London, and we're hoping that people have the confidence to come and give it a go.
You say girls and boys. People tend to think of this as a girls and women's game, don't they?
They do, but there's been a lot of changes at England Netball recently. There's now an England men's netball team as well, and the growth of the men's game is definitely on the rise. And we found through our research that actually primary school boys are very good at netball and often just give up because there's no sort of pathway for them to go. So that's now being set in place as well, as to make netball as inclusive as possible.
The Paralympics has, in recent decades, been the way to get sport for blind and partially sighted people a higher profile. Could that happen with netball, do you think?
Well, I'm a CEO that likes to dream big, so I would hope so. We are the first club in the world to develop visually impaired netball, and I'm very proud of that, and it fits very much with our ideology. And we just want to see, if it's interesting, if people enjoy it, then we'll work really hard to keep developing it. And I'd love nothing more than to see it in the Paralympics.
And if people are hearing this for the first time, because I know you've got some people interested already, how can people get involved in the festival? Is there still time, and what do they have to do?
Yes, so it's free to come. If they have a look on our website, there's a button there to select a free place to come to the festival. If they'd rather call, then there's a phone line to call, and we've got staff and players that will be there to sort of make sure we look after any VI athletes and helpers, supporters, parents, anyone that wants to come along, just to come and join in and enjoy the afternoon, really.
Sam Bird, thank you very much indeed. And congratulations to your 3 dogs lying at your feet for remaining silent throughout this interview.
There's the first time for everything.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed.
Peter.
And that's it for today. Do join us for our pre-Christmas programme next week. Plenty of fun to be had, including an accessible visit to Santa's Grotto, a review of the latest video games accessible to visually impaired players, and a visit from stand-up TV and radio superstar Chris McCausland. Looking forward to that very much. From me, Peter White, producer Beth Hemmings, and studio manager Simon Highfield, goodbye.